I was tired of the city, tired of the noise, the endless crowd of people all bumping into each other, all shouting in different directions, but never really talking. It was the constant noise of traffic, the clatter of trains, the plain annoyance of just being around people. And on top of all that, there was the weight of everything else. My job, my relationship falling apart, life piling up in a way that just made me want to escape. So I started looking for a new place. Not too far, just enough to change things up. I wasn't aiming for anything grand, just a small, quiet apartment where I could find some peace and reset. A place where the noise outside stayed outside. I scrolled through a bunch of listings, didn't find much. The usual stuff, high rent, tiny rooms, and always some catch. I wasn't willing to settle on just any place, but I didn't need much. Just enough to breathe again. That's when I came across this one. The listing wasn't anything special. 1 bedroom, basic amenities, but it was cheap for the area. The description said it was in a quieter part of town, tucked away behind some old storefronts, away from the usual hustle. It seemed perfect for what I needed. So I made the call. The landlord wasn't available when I showed up, so I wandered around the lobby for a bit. The place felt a little off, kind of like it hadn't seen a real cleaning crew in years. The hallway lights flickered. The carpet was worn, but it didn't look dangerous or anything, just old. There was an odd smell lingering in the air, something between dust and stale food, but nothing I couldn't ignore. I was about to call the landlord again when I heard footsteps behind me. Didn't expect to see you here. I turned around, and there she was. How'd you, Lana? At first, it took me a second to recognize her. It had been a long time, years really. Turned around, and there she was. Hannah. At first, it took me a second to recognize her. It had been a long time, years really, and we'd lost touch after a messy fallout in college. I'd always known her as someone who couldn't let go, someone who'd get too attached and take everything a little too seriously. But that was ages ago. I hadn't thought much about her since then, so seeing her here, of all places, took me by surprise. Wow, I said, trying to put the pieces together. Hannah, right? She smiled, though there was something a little too bright about it. I could feel the awkwardness hanging in the air. Yeah, it's been forever. How have you been? We exchanged a few quick pleasantries. You know, the usual small talk. She was different than I remembered, but I couldn't place why. Her eyes didn't leave me as much as they should have. There was an intensity to the way she spoke, like every word mattered more than it should have. It wasn't that she was doing anything weird. It was just off. She was a little too eager, a little too interested in where I'd been, what I'd been up to. I actually know the owner of this place, she said after a beat. I can probably get you a better deal than what they're offering. I've been helping out with the apartments for a while now. I raised an eyebrow. Really? That sounds good, actually. Yeah, no problem, she said, her voice way too chipper. I'll give him a call. It's a nice place, but it could use a little work. I can vouch for it, though. Her smile didn't fade. It was like she was working a bit too hard to make everything sound just right. We wrapped up the conversation quickly after that. She seemed nice enough, but something about the whole thing stuck with me. Maybe it was the way she'd looked at me, too familiar, too eager. Maybe I was just imagining things, but I could have sworn she was hiding something. A few days later, I found myself signing the lease. I told myself it was the fresh start I needed. Maybe she was just being friendly. Maybe I was overthinking things. Either way, things were moving forward, and it felt like I was heading in the right direction. The apartment wasn't perfect, but it was quiet, cheap, and I was ready to get settled in. It wasn't until after I moved in that I realized just how much I'd let my guard down. The first few days went by without incident. I settled into the apartment quickly, getting things organized and figuring out the quirks of the place. The neighbors were quiet. The building had a certain peacefulness to it that I hadn't realized I missed. It felt like a good decision, a clean break from everything. I could breathe again. But after a few days, the first thing happened. I kept the place simple, just the basics. A couch, a small coffee table, a bed. Nothing extravagant. I even hung up a couple of photos, stuff from trips I had taken, places I used to visit. It felt like my own space, and I was glad to have it. I'd just finished making dinner and was sitting at the table when I heard a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and there was no reason for anyone to drop by. The knock came again, so I got up to go check. I opened the door. No one was there. I thought I was just being paranoid, so I closed the door, locked it again, and went back to my meal. But a few minutes later, the same thing happened. A knock, then silence. I walked to the door and opened it, half expecting to find someone standing there. Nothing. Just the empty hallway. I thought maybe it was the wind and the building settling, something harmless. But it kept happening. More knocks, more silence. No one was ever there. Maybe this place is just haunted. A few nights later, things started to feel different. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. I couldn't pinpoint exactly when it started, but I noticed a strange presence in the space. The kind that makes you glance over your shoulder when you're alone. The kind where you're just a little too aware of every creak, every shift in the room. At first, I tried to ignore it. Then I started hearing the breathing. It wasn't loud, but it was constant. Heavy, like someone was standing right there in the room with me, just out of sight. At first, I thought it was the neighbor's pipes, or maybe the old walls settling, but no. This felt different. It was too close, too real, and it never stopped. No matter where I went in the apartment, the sound followed. It wasn't the kind of noise that fades in and out. It was steady, like someone breathing from just beyond the door, or even in the next room, standing just out of view. I tried to rationalize it. I told myself I was hearing things, that I was just too used to the city noise. But the breathing didn't stop. The next day, I was in the shower when I noticed something that froze me in place. The bathroom door was cracked open, just enough to catch a sliver of the hallway light. I was certain I'd closed it when I came in. My heart started racing as I stood there, trying to make sense of it. And that's when I saw two eyes staring at me from the crack in the door. Not wide open, just enough to catch a glimpse of the person on the other side. They didn't move, didn't blink. They just watched. I couldn't move. I just stood there. My mind went blank. It didn't make sense. Why would anyone be standing there? Why hadn't I heard the door open? And if they'd been there the whole time, why hadn't I noticed? I didn't want to think about it, but the more I tried to forget it, the more the tension built. I didn't feel alone anymore, not in the way I'd expected. It wasn't just the knocking or the breathing or the door. It was something deeper, like a presence that had settled into the walls themselves. I told myself it was nothing. I had to. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to stay. But as the days went on, I started to wonder just how far this would go. At first, I told myself it was just my imagination. The apartment was old, and buildings like this creaked and groaned with every change in temperature. The breathing, the knocks, the eyes in the bathroom. Maybe it was just the weird quirks of a place settling. Maybe the place was haunted after all. I kept trying to convince myself I was being paranoid. But even so, something about the place didn't sit right. It wasn't just the knocks anymore. That would have been enough to make anyone feel on edge, but it was the way things started to feel off. I'd wake up in the morning to find something had changed overnight. A picture frame that I was sure had been to the left was now to the right. A cup I'd left on the counter was no longer where I'd left it. At first, I thought it was just me being careless, but it kept happening. And the feeling of someone else being in the room with me just kept growing. I started double-checking everything. Was I remembering things wrong? Did I really leave that window open? Wasn't that door closed? It wasn't much, just enough to make me feel like I was losing my grip on what was real and what wasn't. One night I stayed up late watching TV. The silence in the apartment felt heavier than usual. Around midnight, I heard a soft thud from the other side of the room, like something had fallen. I paused the show and sat still for a moment. Another thud, closer this time. I got up and checked the room. Nothing. I went back to the couch, but it felt like I was being stared at, like something was watching me. I told myself it was nothing, but I couldn't help checking the locks, glancing over my shoulder as if expecting someone to be standing there. It wasn't until the next morning that things really crossed the line. I was in the kitchen making coffee when I noticed the closet door in the hallway was slightly open. I was sure I'd closed it the night before. I walked over to check it. Inside, nothing was out of place. Just a few jackets hanging up, some boxes stacked neatly in the corner. But it was the closet itself that felt off, like something had been moved around inside. The air in there was colder, even though the rest of the apartment was warm. I backed away slowly, trying not to make a sound, but the feeling of being watched was unbearable now. I couldn't shake it, no matter where I went. The breathing from the other night hadn't stopped either. It had just gotten louder, closer. I couldn't tell where it was coming from, but it was there, pressing in on me from every corner. And then came the worst part. One night I came home late after grabbing some food, expecting the usual silence. But this time, I stopped in my tracks as I opened the door. The room was darker than usual, and there was a heavy feeling in the air, something dense. I flicked on the light, and that's when I saw it. Someone had been in my apartment. A chair was knocked over, the table was pushed out of place, and the worst part? The bathroom door was wide open. I knew I'd closed it. I always did. I stepped inside. My skin prickled. I checked the rest of the place, moving slowly from room to room. No one was there, but it didn't matter. I could feel it now, in the presence. It was real. I called the landlord that night, but she didn't answer. I sent a text, asking about the building, if there had been any strange incidents before. No reply. I was starting to lose my nerve. What was happening to me? Was I really being paranoid, or was something actually going on here? The next day, I ran into Hannah again. She was standing outside the building, as if she'd been waiting for me. I didn't think much of it at first. She smiled that same creepy smile, her eyes a little too bright. "How's everything going?" she asked. The question too casual. "Fine," I said, forcing a smile. "Just settling in. I can help you with anything if you need it. If the apartment's bothering you, I can talk to the owner about it. Just let me know." I nodded, but I didn't feel right about it. There was something about her. Something off. She was being too nice, too attentive, like she knew something. And it seems a little too coincidental to ask if something's bothering me. I had to get out, but I didn't know how, not yet. It was becoming harder to ignore. The constant unease wasn't something I could explain away anymore. The knocks, the breathing, things being moved around. Every time I thought about leaving, something pulled me back, like some invisible thread tethering me to this apartment. I wasn't sure what I was waiting for, but I knew something was wrong. I started snooping around, going through places I'd never paid attention to before. I figured if I could find some explanation for what was happening, I'd be able to stop it, or at least make sense of it. I checked the windows, the door frames, even the small vents in the walls. But nothing seemed out of place. Nothing that could explain the growing paranoia. Then one evening, I came across something in the building's records. I was just digging through old maintenance logs in the landlord's office when I found an address listed under property owner, Hannah's name. The realization hit me like a cold slap. She had more than just a casual connection to this place. She owned part of the building. And when I looked closer, I saw the name of the company she was listed under, a property management firm she'd been with for years. It made sense now. All the strange coincidences, her sudden reappearance, the way she'd been so keen to help me with the lease. But the more I thought about it, the more unsettling it became. I just knew she'd been planning this from the start. I needed to know more. So I started researching her, digging into any old social media posts, any news articles about her. That's when I found out she wasn't just involved with property management. She had a history, a reputation I'd forgotten about. There were reports of her following people around, showing up at odd places, and even some accusations about her breaking into people's homes. It was all under the radar, but there were enough details that it wasn't just a coincidence. That night, I decided to confront her. I couldn't sit in this apartment another night wondering what the hell was going on. When I knocked on her door, she answered almost immediately, like she'd been expecting me. Her smile was there again, but it wasn't warm. It was tight, almost forced. "Everything all right?" she asked. I asked her directly, "Why are you watching me? Why are you messing with my things?" For a second, there was a flash of something in her eyes. It wasn't guilt or even surprise. It was something darker. She took a step back like she was trying to make more space between us, and then she said, "What are you talking about? I'm just helping you out. You seem to need it." "Stop lying," I shot back, the frustration boiling over. "I know you've been in my apartment. I know you've been watching me. Why don't you just admit it?" For a moment, she just stood there, her lips pressed tight. Then slowly, she smiled again, but this time it was different. Cold. "You don't know what you're talking about." Her voice a little too soft. "You're imagining things." I didn't believe her. I pushed past her, ignoring her protests. I needed to see it for myself. The apartment, the room that I hadn't noticed before. There had to be a way she was getting in without me knowing. As I moved through the space, I checked everything I could, every hidden corner, and that's when I found it. A small panel hidden in the back of the closet, a piece of the wall that moved when I pushed on it. Behind it, there was a tiny room, cramped and dark, and that's when I saw it, a small mattress, some clothes, and boxes of things, old belongings, pictures, my pictures. Hannah had been living here. She'd been in my apartment this whole time, hiding just behind the walls, slipping in and out when I wasn't looking. She wasn't just stalking me. She had been living in the very place I was supposed to call home. I turned to confront her, but the room was empty. She was gone, and I was alone again. The only sound in the apartment was my own breath. I was still trying to process everything, the hidden room, the pictures, the truth of it all. But my mind was racing too fast to make sense of it. I couldn't believe what I'd found, and I couldn't believe it had been happening right under my nose. I didn't know what to do next. There was no normal left in my life, not here. The building, the apartment, it was all tainted. Everything I'd thought was just a little off now felt like a sick joke. I needed answers, I needed closure, and I needed to get the hell out of there. I went back to Hannah's apartment. This time I wasn't going to ask questions. I was going to get the truth, or at least force her to admit what she'd been doing. I knocked on the door, not caring if I seemed desperate or irrational. She opened it with that same cold smile, the one that had started to gnaw at me the moment I'd seen her again. "Back again?" she asked. But this time there was something different in her voice, something wary. I didn't waste any time. "Where are the keys?" I demanded. "The ones you've been using to get into my apartment. Where are they?" She blinked, trying to feign confusion, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I stepped closer, refusing to back down. "I found the room. I found the photos. Things you've been taking from me. You think I don't know what's been going on? You've been living in my place, watching me, the whole time. So don't pretend like you don't know what I'm talking about." For a second, she just stood there. Her expression faltered, and I could see the mask crack. "You have no idea what you're talking about," she muttered, more to herself than to me. I didn't give her the chance to back out. "I know exactly what's going on. You're obsessed with me, and I'm done playing along." The smile vanished. Her eyes went cold. It was almost like she was looking past me now and like I wasn't even there. "I thought you'd come around," she said, her voice lowering. "I always knew you'd understand. We could have had something real." She stepped closer, her voice a low whisper, like she was trying to pull me into her world. "You always wanted me, even if you never admitted it. I knew it. And now I'm giving you a chance to see it, to see what we could have been." I felt the nausea rising in my throat. I took a step back, but she was already in my face, moving too fast. The door slammed shut behind her, trapping me in the hallway. Her presence was overwhelming, her body close enough to almost touch. I could smell her now, sickly sweet, too close. My skin crawled. "You're crazy," I said. "You're insane." She smiled again, but this time it didn't reach her eyes. "You can't just walk away from me," she said. And I realized then that she wasn't just angry. She was scared of losing control. "You're mine now. This apartment, everything in it, it's ours. It's always been ours." I pushed past her, as calmly as I could manage, and ran for the door. I didn't look back. I didn't need to see her face again, not if it meant staying sane. The next day, I called the police. They took me seriously, finally. Maybe because of the evidence, pictures, things I'd found hidden in the walls, the receipts for the apartment from her company, everything pointing to the same terrifying truth. She had been living in that building for months, watching me, planning every move. Her obsession wasn't just about me anymore. It was about control. When the police raided her apartment, they found everything. More pictures, more surveillance equipment, even a room she'd set up in another apartment across the building. She'd done the same thing to other tenants, following them, hiding in their walls, keeping track of every move. She'd even been caught before, but it hadn't been enough to stop her. She just found new ways to blend in, always getting closer, always more relentless. In the end, she was arrested. Stalking, harassment, invasion of privacy. They charged her with everything they could. It was over. But I knew the damage was done. I was able to break the lease and get out of that apartment. The building was officially investigated and all the tenants were moved out, but even after all that, the feeling stayed. I thought I was safe. But the truth was, she had left something behind. A mark that wouldn't go away. Every time I moved into a new place, I checked the closets. I double-checked the locks. I couldn't help it. It's like she was still there, watching from somewhere just out of sight. It took a while for everything to settle. After Hannah was arrested, the building was cleared out, and I moved into a new apartment, one far from the chaos I'd left behind. It was supposed to be a fresh start, but that damn feeling wouldn't go away. Not just the fear, but the feeling that I'd never really escape her. The police had found the hidden room, the surveillance equipment, everything she'd been using to keep tabs on me. And other people, too. I'd tried to forget, tried to bury it all under the weight of a new address and a new routine. But every time I closed the door behind me, I couldn't shake the memory of those eyes watching me from the crack in the bathroom door. I started over, changed my number, and kept to myself more than I had before. The quiet was a relief at first, but soon it felt like I was drowning in it. My mind would wander back to that place, back to the apartment that was supposed to be a new chapter, the one that had turned into a prison. I thought about Hannah too often, about the things she'd said to me, the twisted way she saw the world. Some nights, I'd hear a knock on the door, and I'd freeze. I'd think about checking the peephole, but I couldn't. I knew better. Even if no one was there, the thought of it put fear in me. I started double-locking doors, checking the closets, even hiding things in places I knew no one would think to look. But then, a few months ago, something strange happened. I woke up to a buzzing sound on my phone. The screen lit up with a notification, a text message from an unknown number. The message was simple. I see you. My heart dropped into my stomach. It was her. Somehow, some way, she'd found me again. I knew I had to take action, but the reality of it was different now. The power she'd had over me, the way she'd invaded my space, my life, was like a shadow I couldn't outrun. I called the police again. They traced the number, found out it was a burner phone, and that's when the real horror hit me. The message wasn't from Hannah, not directly. It was from someone else, someone who had been watching me since I left. I'd gotten away from her, but I wasn't sure I'd ever escape. Not from the paranoia, not from the scars she'd left. I could move again, change my life, but there would always be that question, eating at the back of my mind. Was it really over? Or was she still out there, just waiting for me to slip up? I don't know who's out there now, but I can't forget what happened. I'll never be able to forget the way it felt to be trapped in that apartment. Always on edge, never knowing who was behind the next door. I thought I was free, but the paranoia really seemed to scar me deep inside and mentally. Until she's dead, I know she'll always have that power over me.